Hello, this is Tim Law with Playing It Forward Coaching, always encouraging your self-reliance. If you'll develop a marketable skill, chase that marketable skill with a good work ethic, develop people skills, be a team player, always go the extra mile. You'll be amazed at what you can do as far as this country's concerned. Big thank you to almost 500 people that have subscribed to this channel. Appreciate it very, very much. I have a gentleman here who definitely knows about work ethic, definitely knows about going the extra mile. Good friend Jack Spates, who was not only a New York State wrestling champion, he was an NCAA wrestling champion, coached at Oklahoma for 18 years. So welcome, Jack. Tell us a little bit about your story, your beginning.
Well, my beginning is an interesting one, Tim, and thanks for the welcome. Glad to be here. I was born and raised in New York City. We didn't have wrestling. The only wrestling I knew had ropes. And when I was a sophomore in high school, we moved out to Long Island, Kings Park. And my life was over because everything I was good at in the city was gone. And all my friends were gone. And my life, as I saw it, was gone. And one day I'm in gym class and the gym teacher comes up to me and he says, "You're Spats?" I said, "Spates." He said, "Well, your name's on the wrestling list." And I said, "I didn't put it there." And it turned out some friends of mine thought it would be quite humorous to sign me up for the team as a joke. Well, coaches were always looking for little guys, and I was 5 foot 90 pounds. And so he talked me into coming out for the team. I went home that night, said, "Mom, Dad, I'm out for the wrestling team." He said, "That's great, Jack." And found out years later they got in bed that night and went so and just laughed. And I understand that, but maybe because I was so empty, I just lunged into this sport. And if we're watching television and commercials came on, I just started doing push-ups and sit-ups. My dad put an old, damp, dingy rug on top of rug on top of rug in this damp, dingy basement. And I would wrestle with anybody anytime I could. And when I couldn't wrestle, I'd run. So I fell in love with this sport. And who'd have thought that I would wind up becoming a 33-year college wrestling coach.
Yeah, just amazing on how the twists and turns in life.
Right.
Sometimes, as you said, you thought it was a horrendous thing having to move out to the island. I guess Smithtown High School is where you ended up.
Yeah.
And then within, what was it, your senior year that you won the New York State championship?
That's correct. I was fourth my second year wrestling and won it my senior year.
That is incredible as far as the amount of work and effort you had to put in just to, try to get caught up with these other guys that were, obviously had a head start, starting to wrestling earlier than you did.
Yes. I can remember my first move at Kings Park. Ed Pucci taught me a sit out and turn, and I did about 100 on the spot. And what's interesting, Tim, is in any other sport, football, soccer, I was like a weenie. And to this day, if I tackle you in football, there's still a collision. If we're playing soccer, we're kicking each other, trying to get the ball. But in wrestling, the only way I can explain the fact that I would try and rip your head off, and I didn't care if you tried to rip mine off, is I quickly figured out that if I could control you, you couldn't rip my head off.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You see? And so I kind of approached it cerebrally, and I fell in love with the technical aspect of the sport. I love the hand-in-hand combat, but I really love the technical aspect of sport that allowed me to succeed in the latter.
Well, and I can remember, seeing you in your matches. You were extremely good as far as running bars and that kind of thing, very much controlled. It was like having three guys on top of you when Jack Spates got on top. I didn't realize too, you just said it right now, that we have a very good mutual friend. You said Ed Pucci.
Yes. You friends with Ed?
Well, you talking about the Ed Pucci that went to Oswego?
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
Oh yeah, we were on the same team. We were on the same team together. I did not know that until you just said that. Wait till I'm going to make sure Ed knows about this interview. This is fantastic.
Yep. Ed's a good man.
Yes, he is. Yes, he is. And I'll be getting him on this as well. But yeah, we had some wonderful times together, and a great team guy and everything like that. So now, did Ed go to Smithtown?
No, he was at Kings Park where I started. Yes.
Gotcha.
And I think the the year I won the counties and won the state, well, I won the counties as a junior too. I think he was runner-up. If I'm
Okay.
not
Okay.
mistaken.
Very good.
He
Very
he
good.
just missed going to the state championship. Ed
Yeah.
was tough, and he went to the right school because he was a legger.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Coach Jim Howard for sure. Yeah. Yeah. What, okay. So Jack, you get done with your high school, and then tell us about your collegiate. Um,
So I went to school at Cal Poly, and it was really interesting because Cal Poly back then out in California, they were one of the great programs. They won the small college nationals
yes.
most of the time. They were top 5, 6 Division I, and I really didn't want to go out there. And I normally wouldn't have been recruited as a one-time state champion and a 107 pounder, which many people thought was too small. Of
Yeah.
course, I was 5'8" and
Mhm.
still growing. And but the coach met me at a camp at Michigan State. Someone paid for me to go to a wrestling camp with my coach Don Jackson, and so he saw me. He saw my work ethic. He saw my technique, and he learned that I'd only started wrestling. Really, it was less than 2 years before at the
Yeah.
time, and so he was impressed, and so he scholarshiped me. I still had to pay the bulk of it, and I really kind of felt that if I didn't go for it, I would regret it for the rest of my life. And to this day, even though it didn't work out, and I transferred back, I'm so glad that I went. I went out there. I weighed 115 pounds, and I was just a boy. And everybody told me you'll have to sit for a couple of years, and I said I know, but I never sat before. Even my first year wrestling, I got in the lineup and had a good year. So they had 8 118 pounders. I started out at third team, made it up to second team, but the first team guy was small college national champ,
Wow.
coming down from 140, full chest of hair, shaved twice a day. And I'm walking around going, hi, hi. And he would beat me in close matches. But on top, even though I don't know if he ever turned me, but he just brutalized me.
Mhm.
And then I wound up, I was wrestling the Japanese national team, and I'm wrestling their captain. Took him down right away with a head snap, and then I don't know what happened, but I tore my sternoclavicular, had my knee operated on, and it was just very discouraging. And I decided I wanted to come home, and it actually was it. As I see it, a better move for me. Slippery Rock under Fred Powell, great coach, great technician, and a great team. We were 10th Division I
Yeah.
my junior year. So
Well, you had some good people on there. Stan Desick was on there, and a good shout out to your Cal Poly coach, Floyd Hitchcock. I do remember that man.
He was tremendous, and he was very good to me. Even when I left 2 years later because I had to sit out a year, I'm wrestling the Cal Poly guy in the quarters. Not that guy. That guy moved up a weight, but the guy I had was junior national champion. My junior year, I went in the junior nationals for the first time, and I was 4-1. And this kid beat me like 6-0, and it wasn't a close 6-0.
Yeah.
And then he went on to Cal Poly, and we're wrestling, and Coach Hitchcock goes, "Come on, Jack Spates. I'm at Mark DiGirolamo," which was his name, but he actually said my name, because he had said it so many times.
Sure. Sure.
It was a good man, and that's the thing. You come across so many great people in our sport.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, tell us, Jack, a little bit about your, coaching at Oklahoma. So you get done with your in your collegiate career, you were a national champion.
I was college national champion, NCAA Division I runner-up.
Right, and that I do recall that. And to win the college division, people don't understand. We had to go back in the day. College division in that era was Division II and Division III. It was a tough tournament, and had to be probably as tough a qualifier to get into the NCAA Division I as anything.
Well,
It was so deep.
It's certainly, as any other qualifier, yes. It was a beastly tournament. It was all the Division III plus the Division II plus many Division I schools,
Yeah.
including Clarion, that was 4th, Slippery Rock, that was 10th, and many of the other schools that were in there were very, very tough. In fact, guys like Donnie Roan and Gary Barton were 3rd in the college nationals,
Yeah.
and wound up winning the D1. So no, it was a great tournament.
Yeah. So okay, so you're or moving on as far as coaching at Oklahoma, tell a little bit about that story. I mean, that's a
Okay.
tremendous run.
So when I decided, I did a number of different things, wound up going to seminary, helped coach the Bible college team there, was out of wrestling for a couple of years, a few years, and then decided, I'll never forget, I was uh, riding in my car. I pulled off the side of the road and said, I'm not going to do this anymore. With a wife and 4 kids, I took a job making $11,800 as an assistant coach at the University of Pittsburgh and absolutely loved it. We had their first winning season in 5 or 6 years, had a great recruiting class, including Pat Santoro. We laugh about that now.
Sure.
But then West Point called, and I really couldn't afford to keep working that job. And so I then became the head assistant at West Point with a lot more money, which was still not a lot of money. And I was there for 3 years. And then Cornell came knocking on the door. And I went to Cornell, my first head coaching job. We were about 90th in the country. We were not 9th in the EIWAs, the Easterns. And we went from 90th to 20th to 15th to 10th, from 9th to 6th to 3rd, to winning the last 2 Eastern championships with 9 out of the 20 champions. And they were momentous times. There were times that you experience such great relationships, such great success, such great sacrifice, such great passion. And I'll always be rooting for the Big Red. I always root for all the teams that I've coached at. And then Oklahoma came, and not, they didn't actively recruit me like West Point and Cornell did, but I guess when the job opened, I had recruited 4 kids to West Point. I had a number of Oklahomans on my team at Cornell. So I guess the media had me high on a list of candidates, and people were calling me, and I wound up going to the Sooners, and I've been there ever since. Although I did retire in 2011. My last 18 years coaching were as coach of the University of Oklahoma Sooners.
Yeah, well, these are great memories and great stories, Jack, and obviously well deserved. If you could cite, again, I try to gear this toward teens and young adults. Obviously, we're talking about the discipline of wrestling, but it goes over into all different areas. I always encourage kids, to get involved with the sports, band, music, extracurricular activities, get involved with the school. What life lessons would you say were some of the most valuable ones that you learned from the sport of wrestling or being a coach on a major power, that kind of thing?
Well, I think a couple of things, and we're not going to have time to really flesh these out, but one is, don't let others limit the scope of your expectations. When I went to Cornell, there were people that told me and the recruits I was recruiting, you'll never do it. If you go to Cornell, they'll never be anything. And I recruited kids that were told that they would never get in there. Had one of my former cadets at West Point, who was an Eastern champion, just over for dinner the other day. He was told he would never get in West Point. And in his second to last tour of duty, he came back and he was over to West Point, and he was over the training of the entire Corps of Cadets. So many great stories and great accomplishments. So don't let other people limit the scope of your expectations. And then I would say 2 things. One, work hard. I was fortunate. My dad was a man who got up at 4 a.m, went to work, came back about 6 o'clock at night, shuffled us all over, with the exception of my first match. I don't know, has he ever missed a high school match of mine? And so I learned my work ethic from him. And I always had, for most of my coaching life, I would go to bed 11 to 12, and I would get up at 4 o'clock in the morning without an alarm clock and just go. And so hard work is really important. It's crucial. And then the other thing, and this is so very important, is smart work. A lot of people work hard, but they don't work smart. I was watching one of my wrestlers one time, and he's drilling. It's summertime. It's about 100 degrees out, and he's hitting move after move after move after move. And I said, at the end, I said to him, Mike, I said, that's hard work, my friend. And he says, thanks, coach. I said, but what have you been drilling? He said, well, coach, I've been drilling offense. And I said, and what's your weakness? He said, kind of sheepishly, well, coach, my weakness is defense. I said, then maybe we need to work a little smarter.
Mhm.
So you have to work smart. You have to confront your weaknesses. You have to keep learning. That's another thing. I think you hear, and you would be familiar with or might be familiar with the term HEW. HEW in wrestling circles stands for had enough wrestling. Sometimes you're at nationals and you'll say, well, what happened to your guy? HEW, he had enough wrestling.
Mhm.
And you lose that passion. Well, I think some of that is wrestling is so hard and so grueling. If you're just doing the same thing over and over, you get stale, you get burnt out. You've got to keep learning and
Mhm.
renew that passion. Plus, that's the fun thing, to go out and, I remember putting a hand on the head of my opponent and grabbing my wrist and doing a wrist lead duck under, and he falls on his face. Those things make the sport fun, and they make you a lot more successful. And that's in every area of life. Work hard and work smart.
Mhm. Yeah, great advice, Jack, for sure. And this has been wonderful. Any last second thoughts that you have here before we close it down? This has been great.
No, so one thing I would encourage people, young and old, is this: the Bible tells us that life is a vapor, here today, gone tomorrow.
Mhm.
And I'm going to be 70 years old in July. I know I don't look a day over 69, but I think
When's your birthday in July? That's my birthday month too.
July 20th.
Well, I'm 3 days younger than you. I'm on the 23rd, Jack. That's
Oh,
unbelievable.
you're a puppy. So and I'm sure you were incredulous. How did this happen, and how did it happen so quickly?
Yes.
Life is a vapor. Don't miss it, and
Mhm.
make sure and pursue life both here and for eternity through relationship with our Creator God, through the Son He sent to forgive us our sins, give us hope, purpose, and meaning, and eternal life as well.
Can't say it any better than that, Jack. This has been wonderful. Can you hang for a minute or two when we're done?
Absolutely.
Great. Well, thank you so much, sir. I appreciate it. Great reconnecting.
It's been my joy, Tim. Thank you.